It's not easy being a fairy godmother. The problem is, no one ever listens. Just take the story of Cinderella, for example. If she had listened to me, if she had gone and not trusted her sisters, not touched the golden firebird cage, they would have gone to the happily ever after a whole lot sooner. But did she listen? No. Wait, you didn't know that Cinderella captured a firebird? Oh, you must be remembering that old fool's tale. Let's get a few things straight. There was no slipper of glass or a fur, and there was no mice, no pumpkins, there was a ball, and there was 3 sisters. That part was right. The rest of it, Cinderella was the sort of girl who liked to wander. She would often be wandering through the forest, and one day she got lost. Dreadfully, painfully, miserably lost. She was lost for a whole day and night and another day. Fortunately, she ended up on the final day stumbling across a firebird feather. Now, as everyone knows, the magic of a firebird feather means that you will always end up at the place you're supposed to be. So she took her firebird feathers, went back home, all was good. Then the prince's next monthly ball came up, and one of her sisters begged her to borrow the firebird feather. And she agreed. Silly girl. But sister wore the firebird feather to the ball, and all of a sudden it was a rage. Every girl in the kingdom had to have a firebird feather. It was the only acceptable accessory. The prince said he would marry whoever could capture a firebird. So Cinderella and her sisters decided that they would go for it. Between you and me, I think the prince just wanted to get the crazy girls out of his kingdom. It worked, but it could have backfired on him. It almost did. So they decided they were going to go find a firebird. And the 3 of them set off. They went to the place where Cinderella first found the firebird feather. No more sign of a firebird. They went to the orchard of golden apples. No firebird. They had been wandering and wandering and wandering. And finally they came across an old lady in the woods. That would be me, in case you were wondering. And I told them, hunting firebirds, very bad idea. Go home, live a nice happy life. You don't need no prince. They didn't listen. So I told them, okay, you're going to come across 3 paths. First path, suffering, misery, awful. Second path, you'll live. Your horse will die, but you'll live. Third path, you'll die, but at least the horse will live. They actually seemed like they were paying attention, so I gave them one more warning. Whatever you do, don't touch anything magical, don't touch anything golden, because golden things are almost always magical. Just don't touch it. So I disappeared, and they started arguing. Those 2 sisters could argue for a year and a day if you let them. They couldn't agree. What path should they take? Why were they even doing this? Anything that you could think they could argue about, they managed to get into it. Cinderella had a bit more gumption. She said, okay, I don't want to see anything dead. Not myself, not my horse. So I think I'll take the first path. So she went on down the first path. She toiled. She suffered. She starved. Branches tore at her clothing. It was miserable. No one likes hearing that part of the story, so just believe me, it was miserable. Finally, she came across a clearing, and in the center of this clearing was a gorgeous, golden, magnificent cage, and sitting inside of that was a firebird. So she crept up. She opened the firebird cage, and the whole clearing erupted in a cacophony of noise, and a giant showed up. "Why are you stealing my Firebird?" Sorry. Giant made a deal with her. Said, "You know what? I am deeply offended that you would steal my Firebird, but I'll let you get away with it if you can bring me these silver slippers of the Second Kingdom." She agreed. This wasn't the bargain it sounds like, because the silver slippers of the Golden Kingdom were guarded by twin dragons, and they ended up frying to a crisp anyone who tried to steal the slippers. But Cinderella said she would try. So she went. She went through the terrible brambles, and she saw the twin dragons flying around this pillar with a golden cushion, and on top of it the silver slippers. And she sang a lullaby. Girl could sing. It was a sweet, soft lullaby, and they fell asleep, the twin dragons. So she crept up. But the minute she grabbed the silver slippers, they started screaming, "I'm being stolen! I'm being stolen! Let me go! Let me go!" The dragons woke up. They were deeply offended that she would even think of stealing their slippers. But they made a deal with her. They said, "If you can harness the mare of the east wind and bring her to us, then we will let you take the slippers." So she went off. She came to the east, to a big, wide clearing, and she saw the mare of the east wind, and it was beautiful. And it was wild, and it was free, and it was everything that Cinderella wished she could be. And she wept, because she knew she would never get home. Because she could never get home without the Firebird, and she could never get the Firebird without the silver slipper, and she could never get the silver slipper without the mare of the east wind, because she couldn't capture the mare of the east wind. So this is where I come back. I changed myself into a guise of a horse, and I went to her and I said, "Little girl, why are you crying?" She told me the whole story, and I made a deal. I said, "If you can weave a bridle of gold, then I will stand in for the mare of the east wind." Turns out, she did it. She took a little bit of gold, took the hair off of her flaxen head, wove a bridle. You didn't think I do this sort of thing for free, did you? So we went. We went to the twin dragons, and I traded places. Cinderella took the silver slippers. I changed back into myself and escaped. I am not risking my life or living with smelly dragon breath, even for a golden bridle. But I escaped, and we went off, and I followed her to the giant's clearing. Now, there was no way I was going to allow those cursed slippers to fall in the hands of the giant. So I enchanted a pair of slippers and traded Cinderella the silver slippers for the enchanted slippers. And she traded the enchanted slippers for the Firebird, and she went back. She got to the clearing. It had been almost a year, and her sisters were still arguing. Those girls could certainly argue. So they saw Cinderella. They stopped arguing. They were jealous. They were sick with jealousy. Here she was, triumphant. And what did they have? Nothing. They came and hatched a dastardly plot. They took Cinderella to a small cottage not far from the castle, and they said, "Why don't you clean up and get ready, and we'll hold these for you." So she did. She went into the house, gave the sisters the Firebird and the slippers, and as she was cleaning up, sisters locked the door and set the cottage on fire. They took the Firebird and the silver slippers to the castle. The sister with the Firebird married the prince, and the sister with the slippers enchanted a wealthy and powerful duke. And they lived happily ever after. Except for Cinderella, who burnt to death. The end. What? You don't like that ending? You want something fair or just? Everybody's a critic. Well, fortunately for you, the Firebird didn't like that ending either. Being a smart and clever bird, she flew away. She saw the cottage where Cinderella was burning to death, and she landed on the roof. And suddenly you could smell the scent of cinnamon, and there was a massive explosion. And what was left was Cinderella, reborn, holding a Firebird chick. That's how Cinderella got her name. She is the light that comes from the ashes. Now, at this point, when Cinderella found out what her sisters had done, she decided she wanted nothing of it. She was going to exile herself to another country, live happily ever after with her Firebird chick. I was having none of that. Now, I can't say as I blame her. If I had to claim those sisters of hers, I would have been tempted to move too. But I had not gone to all that work to get the silver slippers to watch them fall in the hands of a spoiled brat. So, I took Cinderella, we went to the castle, and we appeared. We appeared in the great cathedral, and there was the Archbishop, and there was the sister with her Duke. And she was actually wearing the silver slippers. This is a very bad idea. The reason that it's a very bad idea, there is no such thing as pure and good magic here. Everything, every curse carries its counter curse. Every blessing holds a curse. So yes, if you wear the silver slippers, you will enchant whoever gazes upon you. Problem is, if anyone knows the magic word, you'll regret it. I do know the magic word. No, I am not telling you, but I whispered it. And she started to dance. She danced and she danced.